Well, I mean, clearly it was awesome to be back out on the field with these guys. I thought there was really good intent from the guys to practice hard, to be willing to work. Um, you know, anytime you have a new practice style, a new practice format, it can be challenging. And I think it was a little bit for the guys today. I thought for the most part, they did a nice job of battling through. I think we need to have more players continuing to finish practice strong and get out of a little bit of the survival mode. But that'll come with time. That'll come with even more conditioning and football conditioning and being on the field. But we definitely need to emphasize that. From an injury standpoint, Jake Smith went out today. It sounds like a broken foot, so we'll assess that. I don't know exactly how long he'll be out. And then I think that's really it from an injury standpoint. But all in all, I thought the guys competed hard. I thought you could tell that they've put in the time for the day one installation. Now tomorrow we got to buy into the meetings, clean up our corrections, all right, and make the necessary corrections so that we go back into install on Thursday and we can continue to grow and get better as a program. So all in all, day one, it went well. But definitely, like we've said before, we got work to do.
Great. Thanks, Coach. Go ahead and put your raised hand functions up, guys, and we'll go through a few questions. Bob Ballou, you can start us off.
Sark, you've talked a couple times about this yesterday, and then you mentioned it again just then, the new practice format. What does that entail for these guys, and maybe what's different than what a lot of programs go through?
Well, we definitely have a lot of reps. There's not a lot of standing around. We two-spot a lot of our drills so that everybody's active in practice. We try to minimize the time that we're actually on the field. But by doing the time on the field, that means, we got multiple things going on at one time. And by doing that, that minimizes some of the rest time that guys would normally have in practice. But it gets them ready for what games should be like. And, I just think it's a little bit new. It's a lot of reps. And with reps, yes, there's naturally going to be some mistakes, but over time, those number of reps, we should clean up those mistakes and then play at a really high level. So on that front, it's just different, and it's going to take them a minute, but for the first practice, I'll take it, what we got today.
Kirk, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, how would you rate the team's speed overall? Are you happy with that? And who would you say has impressed you as maybe a couple, three, the best athletes on your team?
Well, I think our team speed, it appears to be good. We're a pretty athletic team. When you look at the secondary, when you look at the wide receiver position, when you look at the running back position, I think, when we have a full allotment of guys, when we have Overshawn and we got Troy O'Meary back out there, I think that adds to it clearly. A couple of guys that jump out, I think offensively, you look at Bijan, you look at Roschon, you look at Jay Witt. I mean, I think all three of those guys are pretty versatile, pretty talented players that way. I think defensively, Anthony Cook has really stood out to me as from an athletic standpoint. I think Josh Thompson has stood out to me. Those are probably the two that jump out. I mean, clearly as a defensive lineman, Alfred Collins is a very gifted athlete. I know that doesn't necessarily always relate to team speed, but when you're athletic up front, those things go a long, long way.
Harry Middleton, you're up.
Coach, good morning. I'm curious, how has your new staff coming together? How have you guys gelled? Have you guys had any issues? Are you guys working through any things? How has it been working with this new team?
Well, I think the staff's been great. These guys have had a lot of buy-in. I think one thing that is critical is, especially in spring practice and when you're new, spring practice, there's a lot of working against one another, but also working with one another. And it takes a lot to work well together from an offensive and a defensive standpoint. And I thought today was a really good day from that standpoint of day one of, the defense and offensive coaches and schemes and what we were implementing on both sides of the ball of working well with one another, not necessarily trying to beat the other guys or out scheme the other guys, but developing our players and teaching them our baseline and foundation from our scheme standpoint and installation standpoint to where they can grow and get better. And that takes really good coordination on both sides of the ball and coaches buying into doing it. And I'd say the other thing that jumped out to me today is I thought it was really good. You know, the coaches, they're buying to, it was a new practice schedule for the majority of them too. And sometimes you don't know where you're going. And you kind of have to just get to where you're supposed to get to and then figure it out. But I thought all in all, they were wired into it and had the players ready to go.
John, how you're up?
Coach, you mentioned the guys battling through and some of them not able to finish strong or needing to learn how to do that. Did you say anything to those guys, or did other players say anything to those guys?
No, I didn't address it that way. I addressed it post-practice from a team standpoint. You know, we have a very aware team. They know what it looks like. And, you know, I don't think it's worth pointing that out day one to a specific individual. They're going to know when they watch the tape. They're going to know when they had an assignment or a play early in practice and they executed it right. And towards the end of practice in the fourth quarter of practice, it was the same look, same play call, and they didn't execute it right. That tells me we were fatigued and the fatigue got the better of us and we weren't mentally tough enough to fight through and to do right, even when we're not, you know, as fresh as we were at the beginning of practice. But that's what football is. At the end of the day, it's that ability to execute and to make those plays and to do our jobs really well in the fourth quarter when we need it. And so that's what we're trying to instill in these guys.
Ryan Davis, you're up.
Hey, Steve, you know, there's been so much talk about the offense and what, you know, what you hope to do with the offense. I was hoping you could talk about the defense and what Coach Pete and them are talking to these guys about and what you're trying to get done.
Well, I think we're a very aggressive style defense. We're a penetrating defense up front. We'd like to keep our eyes on the quarterback to create turnovers, and that definitely showed up today. I think we had a few interceptions with people getting underneath routes, reading the quarterback. You know, this system is predicated on attacking and creating turnovers. And it was good to see that kind of come to fruition in day one. Now, limited installation, not a lot of calls, but I think the players understanding what the coaches are trying to get done and reinforcing it when those good plays occur, I think is going to be really helpful for us. So that definitely showed up today.
Joe Cook, go ahead.
Steve, who took the first snaps at quarterback today, and what will that process look like during this spring for you?
We rotated Hudson and Casey today with the ones, and that's how we'll go through spring.
Anwar, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I'm just kind of curious, like from the tight end room, since you don't have Cade Brewer there, who are the guys that are getting kind of some of the run and the looks in that room?
Cade was there today. Cade had a really good practice. So obviously Wiley, Epps, they were really good today. Gunnar Helm was good today. Juan Davis was good today. So we had a full allotment of those guys. I thought they had a good practice, not perfect like everybody, but just from an understanding of what we're trying to do, I think that their focus was pretty good.
Time for a couple last ones. Chip, you're up.
Steve, can you just describe like the format of practice, how long you went, how many periods, 2-minute offense, that kind of stuff?
We weren't ready for 2-minute offense today. That was for sure. We go, I guess it's about 14 periods. We do a couple of walkthroughs to start practice, and then, we're out there for a little over 2 hours. And again, a lot of people will say, well, don't you need to be out there for 3 hours? Well, I assume we can keep the players' attention a little better for 2 hours, especially when everybody is active and everybody has things to do throughout practice. And so that's the goal. We try to keep the pressure on as if it were a game. We try to keep the mental pressure on them as well. And that'll only grow as we continue to work ourselves through spring. But all in all, a lot of group periods early on, a lot of team periods at the end, 2 different special teams periods throughout practice. So, we walked through practice yesterday. They came out and did it today, and I expect us to only get better with the practice plan as we go.
2 last ones, Jeff Howe, then Jeff Jones.
Sorry, Sark, with the offensive line, just in terms of getting to watch some of those guys move around today, what were your general impressions? And then specifically with that group, Jake Majors, how important is it for your center to, quickly absorb the offense and really understand what Coach Flood wants and then kind of be able to disseminate everything from that center position out?
Well, I would say I was relatively impressed with them. We're not in pads. We have helmets on. So sometimes it's tough to tell what that looks like, especially in the run game. But all in all, I think that, we were in unison, which is one of the key components of the offensive line. And how do you get in unison? The center making those calls is on point with his calls and getting everybody on the same page. And so that is a key component to what we do. I felt like a lot of the people in practice, we had some breakdowns late in practice that we weren't having those same breakdowns on early on. And that just tells me we're a little bit fatigued, and the fatigue got the better of us mentally. So that's definitely an area for us to improve on.
Last one, Jeff Jones, go ahead.
Coach, you've talked about the installation of the offense a little bit. You guys aren't at a point where you can run the entire 2-minute offense, but I know that you have been in the classroom before today. What's the strategy behind installing your offense, and where are you right now in the process?
Well, the strategy is you try to teach your base principles. You try to teach your base formations. You don't want to, at least me, I don't like to get into the exotic things right away if you haven't taught a foundation of what the system is. And a lot of times the things we put in today, we don't call very much even when the season comes around, but it's about building that foundation for those other plays as they come. And, that's kind of how we go. Now it's a pretty hefty installation for about 5-6 days. And so, the key component is to learn from today and then build on today on Thursday, and then so on and so forth as we move forward. So it takes a real mental kind of want to dig into this thing to get yourself right so that guys can play as fast as they can.